What's up, Bills Mafia? I'm Fernando Schmude, that's your leading the charge at Buffalo Rumblings. And today I have the pleasure of finally meeting an old friend of mine, Skarekrow, Jeff Kantrowski. Thank you so much for joining us today, man. And I really appreciate you taking your time, and really glad to finally meet you personally, or at least being able to put on a face on the long-time friend from the message boards at Buffalo Rumblings. Welcome, man.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, with the time on the boards, pleasure to be here. And like you mentioned, it's like meeting an old friend for the first time, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? That's crazy. How long we've been talking, chatting, discussing Bills football, but finally, for the first time, opportunity to meet and to discuss live via Buffalo Rumbling channel. So I'm really thankful for those opportunities that were just possible thanks to this Buffalo Rumblings podcast web, right? And so let's get it rolling and let's talk some Bills. The Bills in a difficult situation right now, maybe the worst situation they've been in a long time, right? And especially with all the injuries going on the defense side of the ball, especially, but also a little bit on offense with Damian Harris and some guys struggling also. But the Bills still are a winning team, Jeff, and they still have a lot of chances to even win the division again, right? Because the Dolphins couldn't separate itself. So there are some hopes still for the Bills, right?
100%. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, as bad as the Bills are, they're only a game back in the division, and there's plenty of season left. So, the knock on the Dolphins is they can't beat a winning team. So if that trend continues, and we hope it does, Bills are going to be sitting pretty. Hard to see that at their current record, but that's the reality. Is they're not really that far behind their biggest rival right now.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And to be able to get it going, it's important to the Bills to start right now with this Monday Night Football just around the corner matchup against the Broncos. The Broncos are coming from 2 wins in a row, and It seems that they finally figured out some of the stuff that was killing them before. Like the defense was really problematic in the beginning of the season, but it seems they have it figured out a little bit, or at least it seems very improved. They could beat the Chiefs. They could make some good offenses look bad, and we have the Bills' offense being questioned a lot, despite all the good metrics, the good statistics, a lot of positive stuff regarding the Bills' offense when we look at the stats. But when we watch them play, it feels different, right? And the Bills need this offense rolling, especially with all the issues on the defensive side of the ball, all the injuries, and how it really has affected this defense that has struggled to hold opponents, or at least to avoid some, especially on crunch time. I feel like this defense has struggled. But I would like to hear from you. How do you feel about the Bills' issues right now, offensive related, defensive related, off screen? We've talked a little bit real quick about I'm more worried about the defense. You seem more worried about the offense. So let's get it going. Talk about a little bit about it. How do you feel about it, man?
With a couple of days to think about that, it's really almost like two separate issues. And I think that's why fans are so divided on are we more worried about the offense or the defense? And if you look at it from an overall performance perspective, I think it's very obvious, probably to most fans, that really the defense is struggling more. I think both sides of the ball have their issues, but the defense is certainly struggling more. I hate to be a hater, but allowing Mac Jones to just drive down the field for a game-winning drive, I mean, that's not what we want to see, and that's emblematic of the struggles we're having. So I think from a lot of fans, when you look at that scales, who's better or worse, it really becomes more of the defense is obviously struggling more. But from the perspective of where can we make room for improvement, or where can things actually change to get the Bills back to their winning ways, I think that's why I and a lot of other fans really start learning or leaning more towards the offensive side. And I think the reason for that is you mentioned the injuries. The defensive side, I think someone in the Buffalo Rumblings Discord channel pointed out earlier, they're down 6 of their 11 starters from the beginning of the season, which is just an insane stat. There's not really much you can do when you're depleted by injuries to that level. So for me, I focus more on the offensive side of the ball because I think that the talent is still there. They have had a couple of people dinged up, but the offense can put it together. They just add a little bit of consistency. They're going to be rolling, and they can carry the team, which is what we're hoping. And it's really what the Bills need to do in order to get back more in the win column more often. So it's really that kind of weird split between what exactly are you looking at. If it's overall quality, I know like you said, we spoke offline a little bit. Overall quality, I actually think I agree with you. After a couple of days to think about it, the defense is struggling more. But if we're looking at problem solving, I'm probably leaning a little bit harder on the problem solving side when we shift over to the offense.
Awesome. Yeah, man. I really feel like not just after the injuries and how the defense has played so far, but there was a stressful experience that all of us went through with those 13 seconds, And since that day, man, I kind of convinced myself about, look, if the Bills are going to win the Super Bowl, they will need the offense carrying the load, I feel like the old saying of offenses win games and defenses wins championships, I feel like it's a little bit outdated with the nowadays NFL, in the meaning of, okay, defense obviously are real important and they can make game-changing plays. I just don't feel like nowadays it's very, how could I put it? It's fair to expect a defense to dominate like the 2000 Ravens did, for example, carrying the team to the Super Bowl and the win. Literally carrying them, right?
Yeah.
I feel like it's not fair to expect that from a defense. We've seen real good defenses from the Bills in the last few years, number 1 ranked, number 3 ranked, and we saw what happened when we faced Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs or Joe Burrows of the world. So I feel like since that day in the 13 seconds, I felt like, okay, the Bills will need the offense carrying the load and the defense playing complementary football, creating some turnovers in the right situations at the right time, being able to get out of the field in a crucial situation, give the ball back to Josh with 2 minutes left and give him an opportunity to win the game, And so since that day, I kind of made my mind about, okay, the Bills defense, even with the all the starters, the defense complete with all the starters, all the investment, the Bills have invested a lot on the defensive side of the ball. And I really don't expect this defense to carry the team, but I expect them to be a little bit better, even with the injuries.
Sure.
It's like, okay, I don't expect them to be the number 1 anymore, the number 5 anymore, but they can't be bottom 5, and they gotta be like middle tier and being able to make some game-changing plays. And I haven't felt. You just mentioned the game-winning drive to Mac Jones. Man, that was awful. I felt really like it's 13 seconds all over again,
right?
Because of the proportions, right? It's Mac Jones. It's the Patriots offense. You have no excuse about, you're worried about the run game. No, you're not. They don't have time, right? So that's what I really understand when people are like, look, the defense, they are doing everything they can. The injuries have killed them. I get it. But with all the investment, man, on the defensive side of the ball, with Sean McDermott being a defensive head coach in an era where everybody's like, okay, only offensive head coaches go to the Super Bowl, I feel like, man, I don't think it's unfair to expect them to be a little bit better, to maybe be able to stop Joe Burrow and give the offense one more time, like make that tackle, give the ball once more to the offense. So that's how I feel about this defense. Even with all the injuries, man, we still have, for example, if Benford probably is a no-go in the next game with his hamstring, right? You have Rasul Douglas, you have Dan Jackson coming maybe from his best game, the best game of his career, and you have a first-round pick that you aren't even using. You don't have anymore because he's injured reserve, but you had it. So you have a top 10 pick in the defensive line. You have 2 big ticket free agents in Von Miller and Leonard Floyd. You have second-round pick Nepenez, another first round pick in regular. So you have a lot of investment on that side of the ball. The two all pro safeties who obviously are getting older, but still the Bills choose to bring Poyer back this year. They could have moved
Right.
on, right? So that's why I can seem some harsh when I tweet about the defense. It can seem some harsh, but man, yeah, they held the Bengals, yes, but after allowing two first drives for touchdowns, the first two drives, two touchdowns.
Right.
How much it was the defense holding or the Bengals just managing the game and milking the clock, So that's where I have problems with the defense, man.
No, that's understandable. And, to your point, you brought up 13 seconds, which is a phrase nobody ever wants to utter, but we have to discuss it because it's part of our legacy. And, part of the unfairness of asking a defensive stop, particularly at that point in the year, is you're facing the best of the best. That's the playoffs. It's everybody's at their best. They are amped up. You've played. You know what it's like. This is it. I either give it up my all or I'm going home. You have that energy going through there, and then when you have a close game like 13 seconds or really any playoff game, a lot of times it is going to come down to that one score or that one or two plays that make it, and you're putting yourself in 4-down territory. It's hard enough to stop a modern NFL offense with 3 downs. When they're playing a little bit safer. When there's not as many risks that need to be taken in the regular season or prior to the fourth quarter. But end of games is what's going to make or break you, that fourth quarter, last minute drive. And the odds are stacked against the defense, especially so in the defense or in the playoffs. So, yeah, 100%. And I don't think you're unfair saying, look at all these players who still should have a ton of talent. And what can they do with that? And could we expect some additional help or some new wrinkles? And just by happy accident, what I decided to do for my YouTube video this week was take a quick look at Linval Joseph. And on the second drive of the game, what did I see? A 3-4 defense from the Buffalo Bills.
I saw the video. I was actually ready to ask you about it.
Yeah. And that's from that defensive head coach. A lot of people talk about how rigid he is or how inflexible he is. I think he does the best he can. And overall, from Buffalo Bills head coaches from, I won't say my age until current, I can't think of a more flexible or adaptable head coach. Season 1, he cuts Marcel Darius, or they get rid of Marcel Darius, rather. They have to switch to nickel defense. They use Lorenzo Alexander as that Swiss Army knife when they had the luxury of a player of his caliber. This year they brought in Linval Joseph, and we're starting to see some 3-4 looks sprinkled in, which is something I never thought I was going to be talking about with the Buffalo Bills under Sean McDermott, despite all of those other examples of flexibility. So I don't think it's unreasonable to expect more because he's shown that he's constantly willing to change what his defenses are doing. I know not everybody sees that all the time. It can be difficult to recognize. But if you have any faith in what I do for the Buffalo Rumblings team, take it from me. He's adaptable. He will make swaps based off of personnel. He will look for what he can do different if he thinks it will be better. So I think he's doing that, and I'm hoping we're going to start to see some dividends. And I know with the group, the Rumblings group, not a lot of us really like the head coach of the Broncos. His name's almost forbidden. We like to see bad things happen to the man because he seems like he's just kind of a jerk. This is the game I want things to click because it's going to feel even worse if he's the one who puts what'll feel like the last nail in the coffin for the Bills. So, yeah, I think it's we keep coming back to this offense or defense chicken versus egg situation, and there's good arguments on both sides. And the reality is when you're where the Bills are at compared to where their expectations were, there's expectations that can be elevated across the entire team. And I've defended Ken Dorsey. I've defended Sean McDermott. I just did 30 seconds ago. I've defended all of that. That doesn't mean I can't expect a little bit better from that. And really what I'm getting at here is just be kind to each other, Bills fans. It's not what we want, and disappointment can lead to ugliness. So be nice to each other. Let's, we're not really looking for answers. The team's doing it, but let's discuss what is happening with the team and find those answers in a way where we're not, saying things we don't mean to each other along the way, if that makes sense.
No doubt. Especially because, man, it's fine to disagree with each other. Like, I'm right there talking about how I feel like the offense has been more unlucky than bad and more like impacted by the difficulties on the defensive side of the ball, even though I'm not pointing out and say, they must be better because of the investment, but I can understand the injuries and I can expect more from them. But it's fine to disagree. I'm pretty sure a lot of people see it differently, and nowadays it seems like disagreeing you are offending other people. I feel like it's crazy, man. But talking about the 3-4 front, it's interesting because it's still in a nickel formation, right? The McDermott used that 3-4 front with the nickel personnel, right? And Tyrell Dodson lining up, opposing to Von Miller as an edge player in that formation. Epeneza isn't a guy suited for a normal 3-4 defensive role, but he lined it up in that situation. So it seems, just like you said, how he's trying different stuff and how he's trying to find what works with the pieces he has now that aren't the same pieces as he had in the beginning of the season to work with, right? And how confident are you with the additions of Linval Joseph, a guy who's able to play that nose tackle, and the Bills probably didn't have this kind of player on the roster especially after Daquan Jones got injured. And how do you feel about the possibilities of Linval Joseph improving this defense, especially against the run, and Rasul Douglas as a corner? I think those additions were really nice, and especially talking about Rasul Douglas, man. Trent Davis-White is awesome, but he hasn't been that all-pro corner that we saw years ago. So Rasul Douglas is completely capable of maybe replacing Trent Davis-White at a kind of similar level. How do you see it?
Yeah, I think, if you talk about ceiling Trey White, if you take a look at the player we want him to be, there's not a lot of confidence that Rasul Douglas comes in and replaces or is a direct replacement. But, as you noted, he's still coming back from that injury. That does take a long time to recover from. And he didn't look like the same all-pro player we were expecting or we're used to seeing. So the level we were getting from Trey White, I think Rasul Douglas could be, I think his ceiling is a replacement for that level. And, we get Christian Benford back from injury, hopefully at some point soon. And maybe things start clicking with the defensive backs. We see a lot of smart players in the secondary and, a lot of versatility, which is something that Sean McDermott has always coveted for his defensive players. And it allows them to make those changes on the fly. So I think they can survive better than a lot of teams with these injuries. I think if you had a lot of teams with that 6 of 11 players gone or whatever the statistic was against the Cincinnati Bengals with how effective they did look against the Buffalo Bills, I don't think they stop at 24 points. Honestly, I think a lot of teams wouldn't survive that. And one of the things that was pointed out during the broadcast, and a lot of fans kind of reacted because we're geared to the negative at this point. The fans are really attuned to the negative at this point. They're pointing out in the broadcast how they're calling out Taron Johnson and other defensive backs on who's blitzing, like it's something miraculous that Joe Burrow is doing. And we hear it from Allen all the time. He'll point at the player, that's the mic, or he'll call those things out. This is normal quarterbacking. So Joe Burrow, yes, he's very talented, but it's not like this was some sort of grand proof or evidence that the Buffalo Bills are this predictable defense that everybody can see coming from a mile away. And I want to come back to that second drive where I first noticed that 3-4 look come in. The Bengals did not expect that. You can take a look from that play, and I'm going to promote my own video there. Of course, check out my YouTube channel or the link on Buffalo Rumblings if you're interested in what I'm talking about. But with that play, the Bengals did not look prepared for that one. That new wrinkle was very effective. Now, you have a player coming in off the couch. It's hard to really roll him into the game plan as deep as you'd like. But to circle back to, I think, the spirit of your question, I'm very excited about those additions. And, a lot of people were who is this guy or what's going on? He's got kind of this mercenary reputation from last year joining the Eagles for their run. Couldn't be happier with the signing. What he showed just from coming off the couch, showing up at the Buffalo Bills, they added completely new wrinkles to the playbook with him in basically under a week. He took a nice gamble on that 2nd and 1 play to get Joe Burrow to the ground without a gain. It was just a lot of very positive things. He ate up the double team near the goal line, just what we wanted. all the things you could hope that we would have with that signing. He delivered in game one. He's coming in fresh, he's coming in healthy, and he's coming in with a ton of experience and a lot of physicality that I don't know if we've ever had with the Sean McDermott team. I was a huge fan of Star Lotulelei. I think he's a phenomenal player, but I think Joseph just brings that extra physicality that we really haven't seen, which allowed McDermott to say, you know what, the heck with it. We're going to try him at nose tackle as a true nose tackle. We're going to try with a 3-4 style front. We're going to see if Terrell Dodson and Von Miller can play that edge position across from each other. We're going to see what happens. And, it seems like a little bit of a gamble when you're talking about it out loud, but the results spoke for themselves.
Absolutely. And back to Rasul Douglas, man. I just like when I talked about the 13 seconds and how my expectations for the defense changed after that game, and how I started to see the defense as the complementary piece to the offense led by Josh and not the other way around. And Rasul Douglas is the kind of piece that I was expecting to add to this defense, because that's a guy who can take opportunities of taking the ball away from the opponents. He will make those interceptions. He will create those turnovers that this defense badly needs in this moment, because it will be difficult to expect them to stop opponents all the time. But if they can create some turnovers, man, even talking about the Bengals game, they stayed on the field forever. They took a long time to get off the field. But with the way, right after the Bills scored, and the Bills could have scored in the drive before when Kincaid fumbled the ball. So when the offense got going and they finally were able to make it a game again, man, one turnover and you change the game completely, right? So Rasul Douglas is the kind of guy that can make this play for you, and we haven't seen it from Ben Jackson or from Benford yet. So it's a really nice addition to add to this secondary.
Yeah, and when you're talking about all those players, the thing that they have in common with Sean McDermott kind of prototype, and I do want to extend the respect to Leslie Frazier as well, since they seem really to be in lockstep. So just throwing that out there, a ton of respect for Coach Frazier. But the main thing that all those defensive backs have in common really is their on-field intelligence. Those have been the type of defensive backs that have dominated with the Bills. And I think Rasul Douglas fits in perfectly. But the one thing he brings that Benford and Jackson really don't have yet is that depth of experience. And just juggling all of those things. Football field is split-second decisions that, I kind of joke around, but it's reality. When I'm doing the rewatches and putting film together for Buffalo Rumblings, I'm seeing so many things that I had no clue about during the live broadcast, because it's just so hard to process all those moving parts on the field. Frame by frame is like a revelation. It's like mind-blowing how much more you see when you can break things down and go frame by frame. And to think that these guys are doing it in real time, it takes time and experience to learn all of those things. And Rasul Douglas brings that element that, will Dane Jackson get there? There's a good chance. Will Christian Benford get there? I have high hopes for him. I think he's played exceptionally well with his short time. But again, it is a short time. So that veteran experience, where he still hasn't lost that step athletically to the point where it's a significant problem for him. So yeah, you talk about age, but I think he's really in kind of that sweet spot where he's got that wealth of experience and still that capability to perform physically and do what he does. So yeah, I do expect that hopefully that will translate when he gets more into the system. Played a limited role this week, but I think that will translate into more turnovers. I think it'll also translate to a little bit more confidence with the players in front of him, knowing that they have that back end covered a little bit better. And all of those things really play well together. The phrase of the week, as you said a few times, has been complementary football. It's not always just one spot or one side of the ball playing off the other side. Sometimes it could be the parts on the same side of the ball also complementing each other. So quick pass rush can lead to an opportunity for the defensive backs. The defensive backs locking up their wide receivers can lead to more opportunities from the front four. All of that stuff plays well together. And you mentioned, going back to that, and I'm just going to push the needle into the offensive side of the thing a little more, since I said we're going to debate this a little bit today. But the Bengals game in particular, one of the big things is when the Buffalo Bills were making mistakes on offense, they were doing it very quickly. So that time of possession became incredibly lopsided for that game, which tends to wear down the defense a little bit quicker and leads to more opportunities. So again, coming back to the complimentary, Do the Bills always need to score on each drive? No, but sometimes if you're going to fail with a drive, maybe I know we're trying to get more hurry up is what people are looking towards. Maybe less hurry up, maybe more no huddle, where they can keep the defense from substituting and limit their opportunities to adjust to what Buffalo's putting out there. But use that play clock, because that's another way that they can complement each other, is not get off the field so quickly. Even if it's a 3 and out, you still have the opportunity to burn a little bit more time if you think your defense needs a rest or a breather from that situation. So all those phases, and I think that's really what this conversation, I think everybody's this week, what can the Bills do to get back to where we want them to be? And that's really it, is every little step of the way, every player, every phase has that little look in the mirror, that little tweak, and enough of those things happen, I think they're going to be right where we want them to be.
Yeah, man, and it's easy to criticize, right? Oh, they haven't gone no huddle anymore, but if they went no huddle and get out of the field real quick, man, all the same fan base would kill Coach McDermott or Dorsey for keeping the defense on the field for way too much, or for not giving them time to rest. So there are both sides of the coin, and people always are analyzing after the bad stuff has happened, right? Not before. So it's way easier to do that. And another thing that people get mad at listening is about complementary football, and they feel like it's cliche and it's a way of hiding stuff, a way of, Coach McDermott doesn't want to throw Dorsey under the bus or his players, so he's gonna talk complementary football. And but man, there is no other explanation, no better explanation for this difficult moment for the Bills, because in this Bengals game, and it's something that we can see even in the live broadcast, when the offense was rolling, the defense wasn't in the start of the game, and then the opposite happened, right? When you felt like, the defense is doing a great job holding down the Bengals, man, if they were, that was the time that the offense started to struggle, right? So that's complementary football, man, and it makes all the difference in the world. And even the special teams, nobody talks a lot about the special teams, but those special teams plays make all the difference in the world. Like, a few weeks ago, Tyler Bass missed some field goals, and they were really important that game, right? And how about the return game? We haven't had any of those big time returns, those Naheem Hines returns against the Patriots last year. Those touchdowns were huge for that game, right? So we haven't had a great special teams play also. Even some Martin's punts have been pretty meh, right? So that's complementary football, man, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, and there's kind of a running joke in the Rumblings Discord about my feelings on kickoff returns. You brought up Naheem Hines. He had 2 touchdown returns in one game against the Patriots. That's 33% of the total for the entire regular season for the league. There's only six returns all year. So if you can generate even one of those big plays, it really is a huge boost. But the running joke with the Rumblings crew is my rule of thumb is you don't ever return a kickoff, because the odds are so stacked against you, and all you're doing is you're beating your team up. You're making everybody sprint. You're making everybody collide at full force with sprinting, and the end result is that you're probably going to end up with the ball around the 25 anyway.
Yeah, risking a fumble, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, but on the flip side, I'm a huge fan of, and I wrote an article about it a few years back with Tyler Bass. He's got good directional kicking, and he's got more than enough power. I love, we talk about coffin corner punting. I think Tyler Bass is capable of coffin corner kickoffs. So where you can direct people into one lane, you take away half of the field for the return, and you're forcing the guy to make that decision. So, this year they can call for that fair catch, get the ball at the 25, but guys are still taking that risk. So I think that's still something that's in play. And all those little details, I'm glad you brought up special teams, because that's a phase where everybody's focused on offense versus defense, but that phase really is struggling. You had one game, I think it might have been the Buccaneers game, where Sam Martin was just untouchable. His punts were magnificent all game. I'm like, this guy's really, really helping the team out. And then against the Bengals, it's like, oof.
Yeah.
Not a team you want to give a short field to. We had the wrong result versus the wrong team, so to speak, with that. In all those pieces, we've allowed a couple of big returns on punts and kickoffs that have bit the defense. The defense is struggling. Even one more set of downs that the special teams crew can give them is that one extra chance to get off the field and maybe make something happen. And then back to your point with, the offense is rolling and the defense is sinking, and then they flip. If you just have back-to-back series where they both play well, I mean, they lost to the Bengals by one score. You have one series where they both just complement each other for 10 minutes. You have 10 minutes of solid play from the entire team. That entire game could be completely different. And it has seemed to be how the season goes. One does well, the other kind of falls off. And if people are starting to hate on that phrase, complementary football, but it sounds like you and I are on the same page. It is probably the one thing that if we could see more complementing of each other, we could see more of those things meshing a little bit throughout the game. I think it would lead to what we want, which is wins.
Great, man. Great. To close out on the defense side of the ball, so we can move on to the offensive side of the ball and discuss a little bit of this malign side so far. How about Hyde and Poyer, man? As we talked today, Hyde and Poyer are they didn't train, right? They didn't practice, and they are questionable so far. Their status is questionable so far for the Monday Night Football game. How do you feel about our aging safeties? Because they've been great, man. They've been awesome finds by McDermott. And when our defense became good, when nobody expected them to be good, when McDermott took over, they were a big reason why. And one of the biggest things that they always were able to do is to take the ball away from the opposition, right? I remember they fooling even Tom Brady to throwing picks to Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde. Who can? My goodness, that interception from Micah Hyde against the Patriots in the playoffs against Mac Jones. He took that touchdown away from the Patriots and flipped it right in the Bills' favor. So, and the Bills are desperately needed for turnovers right now, and it really seems like they aren't the same anymore, or not. How do you feel about them, man, so far, and what are your expectations going forward if they can play against the Broncos and?
Yeah, so I'm terrible at guessing the injury report. So I'm not going to go on record with what I think of who's going to play or who's not, because I'm probably going to get it wrong. But as far as the players in general, I hinted this earlier with the Rasul Douglas conversation, but I think they are getting on the wrong end of the age bracket, unfortunately. We've had a number of tremendous years with them, but I still think they have plenty left in the tank. And with the safety position especially, what you're really looking for is more of that on-field intelligence and the presence of mind to be in the right place at the right time, where athleticism is certainly great, but it's not as important. I remember was it a year or two ago, I forget which, things blend together, but there's that incredible interception from Jordan Poyer against the Ravens, where it looked like he's screaming across the end zone to snatch the ball away. And what everybody was focused on was really how fast he was. Like, oh my God, I can't believe how quickly he got to the ball with that. So what I did, because I'm a math nerd, as many people know, is I broke it down frame by frame and the distance of the throw versus the distance of the run. And it turns out he really didn't have to run that fast. What turned out is he reacted fast. And because he reacted fast, you had, I forget the exact numbers, but he was running basically half the distance of the football or something like that. It's a foot race where he was geared to win as long as he reacted in time. And that's really what made that play special, was how quickly he saw what was happening and got to the ball before Lamar Jackson had a chance to even think that it might be picked off. And I think that's still there. Was it 2 games ago, everybody's talking about, well, they rolled out this crazy dime defense. They've always played nickel. What's Jordan Poyer doing at linebacker? Like, what are we doing? And another example of McDermott adapting with the personnel. And the reason that works is because Poyer and Hyde, both of them, they're just so dang smart that you can plug him into that kind of hybrid role, and he knows where everybody is on the field, and he can react, he can adapt. He's not afraid to hit. He's not afraid to do what's necessary for the team. And the beauty of that is now the depth players, the safety positions, you can play them back where they can see the field, where they can react less on instinct and more on their visual cues. And that's the kind of player that Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde really bring to the table. That's the caliber. It's that on-field intelligence, that awareness of what everybody's doing, what everybody's supposed to be doing, and that quick reaction time. And I don't think that's gone. Eventually, there is that balance where eventually that athleticism falls off to the point where it doesn't matter how smart you are, you just can't make the plays. I don't think they're there yet, but coming back to a nice other cliche like complementary football, the big saying is the best ability is availability.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, getting to a point where they're getting dinged up more frequently. So is it great to have them on the field 60, 70, 80% of the time? And can we mitigate that 20, 30, 40% where maybe we have to have the depth players can fill in? Or when do we make that decision where it's actually better to get the depth players, the experience to maybe expedite or help them grow in their path to maybe become the next tandem that we're looking at? Unfortunately, I think we are getting close to that conversation. But for this year, as long as they're healthy, they're the duo I want on the field for sure.
Yeah, man. And it's nice that you mentioned that dime defense because Linval Joseph, man, he's so important so we can be able to play that dime defense more because that's a piece that can force those second and long, third and long situations where you ideally can have Poyer as a linebacker, maybe take Dodson out of the field. And then I have plenty of confidence in this defense with Poyer alongside Bernard, Micah Hyde in the back end, and Taylor Rapp is a smart guy, also fits perfectly what you said about a smart player, right? And an experienced player also, a guy who has won a Super Bowl, played in a Super Bowl team. So to be able to play more the best guys we have right now and to try to minimize the impact that is missed by Milano being out, I think ideally you have this dime on a lot of the time on the field. And to be able to do so, you got to put the offense in a bad position, in bad down and distance situation, right? So that's where I'm really confident that our defense, despite I've been really harsh on them recently, I feel like they can still get to the point where even without Milano, without Daquan Jones, but they still can get to a point where you need them to be. And it's not like top-ranked defense or shut-down defense. No, but a defense that's opportunistic, that can get out of the field on third down, that can create some turnovers here and there. So that's my expectation for this defense. And I feel like when they are healthy, or can't even call healthy because we are losing Milano, Daquan Jones, White, but with the players they have right now, and Von Miller feeling better, feeling more confident according to himself, maybe by playoffs time, they are really in a great situation. But the challenge now is to get there, right? And I still have hope for this defense, man. But on the other side, we have the offense. And the offense has looked great on the statistics. But when we watch them play, we feel like, man, there's something wrong. Nobody has been able to really decipher it. And what are your thoughts, man, about this offensive conundrum?
Yeah, so it's tough. And, I make the case people are now arguing is that who's right, analytics or the eye test? Because analytics say they're doing fine. Eye test says otherwise. And realistically, both are pretty much the same side of the coin. So the eye test is really just, less data points with the analytics. So really they exist on the same universe to me, but different ends of the spectrum. And, I think there's a case where everybody's right. The analytics are showing a lot of things that are encouraging. Josh Allen's completion percentage is higher than it's ever been. And his yards per attempt really haven't dove. So it's not like he's turning into a captain check down. So that's not the case. So what could be the problem? Your star quarterback is playing like a star. Your stats are looking great. You're, elite tier. So what the heck is the deal? And it's a great piece with stats and conversation from BJ Monticelli today on Buffalo Rumblings. And one of the things that I mentioned, I won't claim to be the first to mention, many people have pointed this out throughout this week, is this disparity between the number of touchdowns they scored versus even the number of field goals they've attempted. And so that's kind of a interesting look with the numbers, because we can objectively see, they have plenty of touchdowns. Josh Allen, not too long ago, he maybe still is. I haven't checked the updated stats.
Leads the league in total touchdowns.
Yeah, he's leading in total touchdowns. So how could your star player who's leading the league in total touchdowns, how could you have a quote unquote bad offense? And the reality is they do tend to go a little bit all or nothing. And I hinted at this earlier with the Bengals. They had a few incredible drives, but even their incredible drives were pretty quick. So you're killing your time of possession in some cases. Early in the season is the exact opposite. They were methodical. They took all the time in the world, and they dominated, which really helped them to cruise to a couple of easy victories earlier in the season. But when they were failing quickly. So you have a lot of those things really kind of interplaying with each other. And when you fail quickly, you're not failing in a way that gets you to a point where you can even attempt that field goal. And they're not losing a ton of points. I did the math. I forget what the numbers worked out to. If they were to be league average in field goal attempts, they're not adding a ton of points on the board. But what you're doing is you're enhancing that word of the day, complementary football. If you're getting close enough to at least attempt a field goal or get within that range, you're burning another minute. You're burning another 2 minutes. You're keeping your defense off the field. You're keeping things going in a way that keeps your entire team elevated rather than, hoping you have this boom or bust. And it really comes back to one of my early projects with Buffalo Rumblings. I used to get into, and you probably remember these way back in the day, the arguments about penalties. I was always on the side of, the penalties really are more even across the league than you think. There's nobody picking on the Buffalo Bills. There's nobody out to get us with those things. And one of the questions that kept popping up, and it led to the idea of penalty harm, which I do in my weekly penalty recap. The question that kept popping up was, or the sentiment that kept popping up was, everybody said, yeah, sure, there's the same number of penalties, the same amount of yardage, great, but it just feels like the Buffalo Bills are penalized at the worst possible time.
Yeah.
And that's what led to penalty harm, because I had to think to myself, how do I quantify worst possible time for a penalty? And worst possible time, I mean, you're fourth down and you screw up on the defense and suddenly you give them a full set of downs, or you blow a turnover, or you ruin a touchdown for your team. Those are the things that lead to worst possible time. And the reason that comes to mind is because, to me, I think that's what's happening with the Buffalo Bills offense. They're failing, and not necessarily an incredible rate. I forget the numbers on this again. I probably could have done a little bit better research before tonight, but their scoring percentage, the number of drives in the scoring percentage, they are still doing incredibly well with that. So they're not failing more frequently than other teams. They're actually failing less frequently than a lot of other teams. But when they're failing, it just seems to be at the worst possible times. And the Bengals game is it's going to keep haunting us because that's, I think, a great example of that. They come right out, they score a touchdown. The Bengals reciprocate. Now it's 14-7. And then what do the Bills do? They fail at the worst possible time over and over again. And then they finally start to pick up again towards the end of the game. But it's too late, unfortunately, for that. So their overall metrics look great. It's just that when those things are occurring, and again, the word of the day, complementary football, because of that, it hurts their other phases of the team. So those failures are just, it's hard to quantify. Analytics probably aren't going to catch it, but they're failing when they can least afford to.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. In the last game against the Bengals, we had just before the halftime, we had an opportunity to kick a field goal, and then that crazy penalty about Josh Allen through intentional grounding. My goodness, man! After years watching Tom Brady throw the ball right in the feet of our defensive lineman, then we see a intentional grounding like that. It's difficult, right? But it moved us out of position to kick a field goal and last 3 points, and it made all the difference also for the remaining of the game, and assuming Tyler Bass would have hit it. But again, against the Giants, we allowed a first and goal at the goal line with the game on the line because of fourth down penalty, a pass interference penalty. So there were a lot of those situations, and even going back to last year with against the Vikings, a lot of bad situations on fourth down in unlucky plays, and that's where people don't want to hear about how unlucky your team have been, and some people don't even believe in luck, right? But man, there's some kind of stuff that happens on some games that you can't blame on anyone, and with this,
we saw it recently with a pass deflected that led to a touchdown. It was deflected off of a player's helmet,
Phillips,
and then
right? Jordan Phillips simply tipped the ball against the Giants, and it was a touchdown.
And then the 2-point conversion right after, so we have a touchdown. So you have two balls tipped randomly, at least to 8 points. Like that, luck exists, unfortunately, and that's a terrible example that none of us want to relive. But there is an element of luck, and we talk about big plays. I think throughout this week. That's come up a lot. The Bills have lacked those big plays, those explosive plays downfield, and some of that is what can you put together? What do defenses give you? But again, some of that is availability of those plays and that lack of that. You hope there's a phrase that goes around with the analytics crowd: regression to the mean. If somebody's one way or the other for too long, the expectation is that they're going to come back to average. You're terrible or you're terrific for too long. Eventually, your luck is going to change on that. So that's if I can offer something hopeful for Buffalo Bills fans on the offensive side of the ball, is they have been dreadful at getting those explosive plays this year. That's another area where analytics says this is actually a problem. If they regress to even the mean, that's great news. A couple 25-yard plus plays, long bomb to Gabe Davis. He's actually having his best career year with catch rate, but he's missing those explosive plays, one or two big plays out of Gabe, and suddenly the season could look entirely different.
Yeah, man. That touchdown pass missed by Josh to Stephon Diggs against the Patriots would have changed the game early on. And then against the Bengals again, I don't feel like Hardy really beat his man on that deep shot by Josh, but the pass wasn't good enough also. And yes, I think Josh maybe has been a little bit down on those opportunities, and they haven't been there, like you said, at the same rate. And probably he will hit some of those throws at some point. Just like you said, there is an average that we are used to, Josh, and at some point he will start hitting on those, and it's going to change the game. And another thing that nobody's paying attention is like, okay, we watch all Bills games, every snap, he watch it and record stuff on it, but we don't do the same on every other team. And that's why people get surprised when they see the Bills offense doing so well at the analyst and in the analytics department. Because if you watch the other games, man, the Dolphins offense put up with 80 points on the Denver Broncos, and they can score 14 against the Chiefs and or against us. They struggled also. And I'm not sure if I've even ever seen an offense look so powerful on one week and so miserable in another one, and it has happened with every team, man. We've seen some games from Mahomes, man. The refs bailed him out against the Jets because the Jets were gonna win that game, and his left tackle literally held the Jets pass rusher for so long that the Jets pass rusher had to slap the guy on the helmet. I've never seen it, But man, everybody has struggled more this year, offensively speaking. It seems like the defenses came this year with some answers, and as people always say, it's a copycat league. Everybody's watching and taking notes and trying to replicate it. And after that loss to the Jets in week 1, and I remember Dan Orlovsky talking about Josh and saying, look, somebody gotta talk to him and say, oh, you gotta grow up and you gotta take what defenses give you. And man, we have seen it literally from Josh since that week 1 game. He's taking what defenses have given to him, and he's playing smart. His completed percentage is sky high, right? He hasn't forced a lot of stuff here and there. He still forces. Obviously, it's his nature, but he's being as efficient as ever been in his career, right? And it doesn't feel like it. And when you see people trying to name this season's MVP, and at some point it was Mahomes and then Tua and now Lamar Jackson, and you put their numbers right to Josh's numbers, and Josh is playing better than them, what's going on? So everybody's struggling a little bit more. It's not only the Bills, and we are out there like wanting our offense to be perfect, or Josh to because Josh missed a read there, or he read the wrong side of the field. Man, it happens to every quarterback. Oh, he missed the throw downfield. It happens to every quarterback. It happens to Mahomes. Go check the film. It happens all the time to Mahomes too, right? So I feel like people are demanding perfection from the offense because the defense has missed a lot of pieces and has been in trouble. And I don't feel like it's very fair. I get it. We're gonna demand more from where we believe they have something to give us. Maybe the defense doesn't have anything more to give us with all the injuries, and then people start to demand more from the offense. But I feel like they've done well, and it's hard to expect much more from that when they are doing so well compared to the other top offenses in the league. And is it a case that the metrics, all the stats are all wrong just with the Bills? All the others, the Chiefs, the Dolphins, the Niners, all offenses are great. Eagles, but the Bills, no, that's wrong with the Bills.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
Yeah. No, I'll go back to my penalty experience and piggyback on that. And one thing I've done a couple of times over the years, whenever I have the opportunity to do this, I usually will, is I'll grab a couple of GIFs from the same game. And what I'll do is I'll take the same penalty from their team versus our team. Anytime I have that opportunity, I'm probably going to jump on it because penalties are so glaring with fan bias. If the other team does it, it's deserved. They're dirty. They're cheats. They're awful. When we do it, the refs are out to get us. It's inhumane what they're doing to our poor Bills, and it's because we have so much emotional investment in our team that it does put a set of blinders around us. And penalties, it becomes very glaring. And I've done that over the years several times to the point where I'm called a ref apologist. And that's the reality is you need to be able to take that step back and here's a good gut check. And you can apply this for a lot of fandom. And I encourage all fans to do this. It's something I've started to do. If you're looking at like a fourth down call, for instance, or any call where there could be a couple of thought processes. So like, should they go for it? Should they not go for it? Mm-hmm. Speak what you think is the right call out loud before the play occurs. Don't wait for the result because the result is going to make you emotional about it. Speak it out loud. I don't care who's in the room with you. I'm sure I'm driving my wife crazy sometimes when I do this. She's watching the games with me, and I'm like, I like this fourth down call. I think this is the right call. And then it fails. I can't back out of it. I'm committed to the fact that I said this is the right call ahead of time. It takes some of the emotions out of the game. And you can do a lot of that kind of gut check. And I think it's important, especially when your team's not doing what you expect them to do. And Josh Allen, in a lot of ways, is having probably his best season in a lot of ways. And it's crazy to say because of the record. You expect, quarterback goes, or the team goes the way the quarterback goes. And, I'm going to shout out Bruce Nolan a little bit here for Buffalo Rumblings. Wins are not a quarterback stat. And that's what we're seeing right now. His stats are great because he is playing great, but the team is not always putting things together in a way that's going to lead to a victory. So it's again a case of, and I think I said this earlier, it's a case of everybody really is right. Josh Allen really is playing incredible football. It just is not leading to victories the way we want because of, again, just a few things here and there. And we call it a game of inches. It's one of those other cliches. We've thrown a lot of them out tonight. It really is that game of inches. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of next-gen stats and the passing distribution charts. If you were to just stack those on a poster, Josh Allen's pass distribution charts for this season and put them up on the wall, I think most Bills fans would look at it and be like, oh, my God, he's having an amazing year. But we're seeing it in the lens of more losses than we're comfortable with. And through that lens, nothing is going to look correct. So it's kind of like, I'm sure you've heard the phrase, seeing the world through rose-colored glasses. I don't know what color disappointment is, but we're seeing the world through disappointment-colored glasses with the whole team right now. So it's hard to take a step back and say, you know what, he really is playing well.
Man, it's funny. It's funny that you mentioned it because I was talking to a friend today, Rafael. Rafael has been here in the Leading the Chart for some episodes in Portuguese, and he was talking about that play, the shot play to Hardy that Josh underthrew. Yeah. And he was like, look, Fernando, Gabe Davis was open in a crossing route. Yeah, he was. And he would get a first down there. So maybe he was the right play. And then Cook was completely open on a check down, right? And I was like, man, if Josh throws a check down to Cook on that play and we see Hardy 101 running downfield, your speedy guy, my goodness, we would have killed Josh. We would look, you have a game-changing play at your disposal, right? And you throw a check down. Are you Trent Edwards, man? Right? Man, it makes no sense. But after, just like you said about your exercise, after seeing the result of Josh underthrowing it, it's easier to say, Gabe Davis was open for a first down. James Cook could take that check down and gain 3 yards. Come on, man. He had a shot play. That's why I can't really be mad at Josh for going for that ball. Yes, I expect a better throw. Yes, I expect Hardy to do better in that situation since he's that guy who was brought in to beat people with his speed. But man, he tried. He tried. I can't call it the wrong play, okay? Because that's a touchdown, and Josh is this kind of quarterback. He will take a touchdown opportunity every time against a first down, and a lot of times it goes right, and we love it. But when it goes wrong, people wanna criticize and tell that Josh is missing reads. So I can't really be mad at that play, and that's how I feel about that situation. But Jeff, to close it out, man, I don't know about you. How confident are you feeling about the continuity or the sequence of the season? But I feel like with all the unlucky situations, with bad play, bad complementary football, sorry, Bills Mafia, but that's the word, and with all the injuries, man, I feel like the Bills, even in the losses and even the loss against the Bengals, just like you said, it was a 6-point game, and we almost had an opportunity to a game-winning drive, right? The loss against the Patriots, man, we were one drive away of our defense doing their jobs and stopping. Maybe they stopped that Patriots offense 9 times out of 10, and they didn't stop in that situation. So I feel like the losses have been close. The wins maybe have been closer than we were used to, because the Bills have blown out a lot of teams in the last few years. But we saw in the last year, man, we starting maybe playing our best football early on the season. Week 1 against the Rams, and the team was ready to win the Lombardi that month of September, and unfortunately the Super Bowl is in February. And right now, yes, it's not comfortable to be in this situation right now. It's not comfortable to think, look, maybe the Bills are going to miss the playoffs because of this situation. But if there is a time to a team to start to figure out stuff, to get hot, and to get into the playoffs in a good shape, it's right now for the Bills. With a difficult schedule, we have the bye week just a couple of weeks ahead, and I feel like we still have the pieces. I always question some of the secondary weapons on the offense. I feel like finally they invested in the offense this year, and it's panning out with Kincaid and Torrance, 2 great additions. And I hope it encourages them to invest more to help Josh and Diggs. But Kincaid is emerging, and it gives me confidence that we finally found a new Beasley for this offense. If you get what I'm talking about that secondary piece to Diggs, right, to move the chains. And on the defensive side, we missed people, but we got Rasul Douglas, we got Joseph, we will get a little bit healthier, I hope. And the games will be difficult, but if we win those games, get into the playoffs, we'll be ready to beat anybody there, right? And if we don't, man, we simply aren't prepared to win the Super Bowl again. And what's different from the last few years where we got into the playoffs but kind of underachieved there? So I feel like I'm not totally mad about the situation now. I'm actually anxious to see how it's gonna pan out. How do you feel about the sequence of the season and all the situation?
I mean, we're both drought era fans, so we've seen some of the worst teams the Bills have had for our generation. So, in one respect, I remember attending a game against the Saints where the Bills couldn't stop anything in the rain and cold, and sitting there and enjoying it, because you learn to enjoy more aspects than just the win-loss column. And the sad result is that 31 fan bases are going to be disappointed every year. That could be us. That's an unfortunate reality, and I don't like the pressure of the current record. I think it leaves a little less margin for error. But again, getting to the playoffs and warming up, as you said, peaking at the right time is important. So very clearly they did not peak the last few weeks. The Buffalo Bills were not playing up to anybody's expectations, and that's unfortunate that it put them in the situation they're in. But on the other hand, we just need to get in. You don't want to be the wild card if you don't have to be. You'd like to be the number 1 seed if at all possible. That's starting to look like a pipe dream. it's an outside chance. Yeah, sure, maybe a bunch of stuff would have to happen. I'm not going to count on that, but I do think the Dolphins are vulnerable. So catching up to them is not unrealistic. There's plenty of season to go. They stumble a couple games. Bills get to where they need to be. They peak. You know what? They're right back at the top of the AFC East, like we wanted them to be, and maybe they're hosting a playoff game again. Not a wild card team, so they still have a shot at that. And if they're in the wild card, it's not the end of the world. Two of my favorite Super Bowls are wild card Giants taking down the Patriots. It's a great Cinderella story. So it'll make the story even better. And that's really what we watch for, is we're watching for that story, for that experience, that emotional attachment to the team. So I'm still holding out a lot of hope. And as strange as it may sound to say this, the current climate with the team is that heightened anxiety. We have almost an enhancement of this emotional journey that the team takes us on, because the last few seasons, it seemed pretty much like a foregone conclusion by this time of the year that the Bills probably were going to the playoffs. The division's ours, we own it. And it's not that it's boring necessarily, but that living on the edge can certainly give you a different experience. And I'm gonna take that as far as I can, because the whole point of this is have a good time. I love watching them play. There's a ton of players that are easy to root for. Josh Allen is one of the most lovable personas in the NFL, and he's not alone. Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, all of these players have such great personalities. They do a ton for the community, and they're really easy to root for. So I'm not going to stop doing that. I'm not going to panic. Worst case scenario is we have a season that's a little bit disappointing, but I'm watching for a lot of reasons other than the trophy, because I've never seen it in the first place, so I'd love to, but I've been watching for, again, I'm not going to tell people how old I am, but I've been watching for many, many years and never seen it. And I still keep tuning in every week. I'm not going to stop that. And it comes back to my earlier point. Make sure you're treating your fellow fans nicely. Nobody wants to be in this position. I could definitely go for a boring season, where it's undefeated. They blow everybody out by 3 scores. Yeah, that'd be great to have as a story for when I'm old and gray. Hey, remember that year the Bills just, completely unstoppable? Sure, it'd be great. We don't have that in front of us. It's not happening anytime soon. So enjoy what we have. So yeah, they're on the fence. They're on the razor's edge of the season right now, and it's nerve-wracking, but it's also exciting, and it leads to tremendous conversations like this. We've been at it for an hour, just having just an amazing time talking about this team, and it's through this lens of that razor's edge. So you know what? Maybe it's not what we dreamed up, but look at all the positives that can come from it. Look at all the fun you can have along the way with your, friends continents away, having this collective experience that we get to share because of this team. So there's no such thing as a lost season in my book. I've seen what people would call that, but I've never labeled it as such. So I'm going to have some sort of peace with myself no matter what the result of the season is. And I do have faith that this team can peak, because they certainly haven't. And if they do peak, they're a force to be reckoned with. And if they don't peak, you said it best, they weren't the team that was going to win it anyway.
Absolutely, man. Bills Mafia, hit that like button, subscribe to Buffalo Rumblings channel. This episode of Leading the Chart is also available in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, other aggregators. Jeff, thank you so much, man. I had a blast today talking Bills with you, man. I really appreciate you taking your time. And the Leading the Chart doors are wide open. Every time you want to participate, you are always welcome, and thank you so much.
I had a great time. Anytime you want to bore your audience with penalty talk and stats, just shoot the invite. I'm happy to be here. I had a great time. Thanks.
Awesome, Bills Mafia. I'll be back on Sunday with a pregame show totally in Portuguese to Brazil and other Portuguese-speaking countries in Latin America. And that's it. See you around. Thank you so much, and go Bills.